Hello, my name is Myra Tainsley, and I am recording this on September the 12th, 2020. And just to give you a background real quick, I am the proud single parent of a 27-year-old African-American young man with autism, high-functioning autism, and he's been a victim of racism and corruption and abuse and neglect and exploitation for several years. Since because of our race and since I am an advocate for my son, he's been hidden and isolated from me. He has not been allowed to have contact with me. They don't want me to see him because I have 4 Facebook pages that talks about and proves with plenty of evidence of all the stuff that my son has went through, the suffering, the abuse, the neglect. And then I'm also a victim of this as a mother. And like I said, a lot of it's racism, because you know how these sick racists, savage racists, when they're sick like that, they don't think black people have any kind of feelings, and they like to take our humanity away from us and try to dehumanize us. But, I hung in there because I'm a Christian. I am a professional woman. I've been an RN for almost 35 years. I have a BSN in nursing. And like I said, they have hidden him and isolated him from me because they know I'm a whistleblowing mother and I will speak out for my son. They took my guardianship away because it's important that if you advocate for your loved one, they don't want you around in the picture legally, because anything happens to him or anything they do with him, they don't have to tell me. So they'll go and get go through probate court, which is another racist, corrupt government trash. But they'll go through probate court and get one of these sick, racist, unfit, corrupt savages. This one is named Erin Sanford. She is a Scum ttorney. She works with the Nigh law groups, but she also works for the government, because all she is just a signature for them. And that's who they'll get. They don't want that family member in there. And so he hasn't been able to call me in almost 2 years. So yesterday, and if you go to my 4 Facebook pages under Myra Tainsley, they all got different titles. You will be able to see the links of the Facebook pages where I have photographs, I have documents, I have recordings, and I also have a YouTube channel. So yesterday while I was asleep, I received a phone call. I didn't hear it at the time because I was asleep. I didn't even hear the phone ring, so it went straight to the voicemail. So when I checked it, when I woke up and checked it, it was a phone call that I didn't, recognize the number, because the phone that my son was able to call me on, when they will allow him to call me, because if he doesn't call me, it's because he hasn't been allowed to call me, or he's not able to, because there's no telling what kind of condition he's in and stuff. But I've been praying as a Christian. I said, Lord, I want to see my son. Jesus said, I got this thing. He said, pray for him. He said, because vengeance is mine, I will repay. And no, I don't approve of what's going on with your son. He said, but I'm with him, and because I'm in control. And I'm going to show the world I'm in control. But anyway, I had been praying. I said, I want him to hear my voice. I said, because they're interfering. They always separate black families. And I never abused and neglected my son. And I haven't done anything to him like they have. And I said, I want to hear his voice. And I want him to hear his mother's voice. I said, because they probably got him thinking that, he doesn't have a mother no more, or his mother has abandoned him. And I said, I sure don't want him to think that you have abandoned him. And so I was just praying. I said, I want to hear his voice, and I want him to hear my voice. Well, when I checked this phone call that I received yesterday on September 11th, 2020, it's almost 3 minutes in length, and you can hear the background, and it sound like in the background like a TV, and then you can hear some voices far off. And then I heard different things, and that was closer to, you know, where the most of the volume was coming from. And it just sounded like there was different things going on. And I didn't hear nothing from my son except for, and I know that was my son at the end, but it wasn't no hello or anything. Because, if he calls me, he'll be going like, hello, hello, hello. I didn't hear any of that throughout the 3 minutes, but at the end, it sounded like somebody was moaning. But somebody had came in that room, and it sounded like they were preparing something or doing something. And with my nursing knowledge and stuff, and I'm wondering, I said, well, it's not from that phone number that he had used in the past. I said, could he have been? And that's one of the primary reasons they don't want, because they know my son could tell me things. But it sounded like he was incapacitated, and it was like, and there was a pause, and he went, and you could hear it clearly, and then it cut off. So, with it being on voicemail, I was able to save it. So you'll hear the voicemail, and then you'll hear it, and then you'll hear the asking me to save it or to call back the number. And when I call back the number, because there's been another number was calling me about going back to school if I was interested in it. And that's the number that came up, because they had called me like 3 or 4 times. So I finally got that. I told them, I said, don't call me anymore. Because the voicemail picked it up as spam. And that's the number they had listed. So when I hit to try to call back to see where this number was coming from, I got the spam number, but it wasn't the same number my son had called me from in the past. But it was just heartbreaking, because it's like, they were doing something to my son, and he was moaning or in pain, and then they cut it off. But I'm going to say, as a Christian, it wasn't what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear my son talk to me and say hello. And I definitely wish I could have answered that phone call. But it went to that voicemail because it probably I thought that number was a spam number. It wasn't that number that he usually calls from. I said, but at least, Lord, I know that he's alive. And I just praise you for that. Because God, he's all in this thing. He said, because he's going to live the life that I want him to live, and so will you. And he said, I'm not happy with the situation. He said, but just to let you know, I'm in charge. And you've been praying to hear your son's voice. He said, but this ain't the end of it. He said, I'm going to finish this thing and settle it the way it's supposed to be settled. Because he hasn't done anything wrong, and neither have you. But, it was very emotional for me, And the Lord had to comfort me. Jesus came to me. He told me that. He said, I wanted you to hear his voice. He said, but I'll take care of it. I'm going to restore everything. And, I've got a lot of audio videos. I've been making recordings of my son when he was talking to me. That from his own mouth, the emotional, physical pain of missing his mother, the abuse, neglect, the disability neglect, and everything. And the Lord said, I got this. Don't you worry about it. He said, I'm with your son. He said, they might be able to stop you now from being with him. He said, but they don't limit my power. And he said, I'm going to show everybody. They'll know who's in charge when this situation is done and over with. And I had to praise him. I said, I know that was you. Because I had been asked, I said, Lord, let me just hear his prayer. Because I had did that, or his voice, and get a phone call for him. Because I had done that in the past before. And because they don't want him calling me because they know he could spill the beans on them. And the Lord made it happen. And where he called me and stuff. But, and I'm going to let you hear it. And like I said, it's about 3 minutes long. And then at the end, they must have been trying to do something with him or whatever. But he just sounded like he was incapacitated. He was just kind of like he was in pain or suffering. Well, he's been suffering, not be able to see your mother. And that's why I say I'm so sick of this racist, sick country. And I say it's toast because God is very unhappy with America. And the primary reason is because of the sin of racism. Racism is a terrible, grievous sin in God's eye because it goes against the second greatest commandment of loving your neighbor as yourself. And it's been going on since July the 4th, 1776, and it's in let me put it this way, it's in every part of American society or culture. It's in healthcare, it's in law enforcement, it's in education, it's in the legal system, it's in housing, it's in employment, you name it. It's in everything. And God is sick and tired of it. I said, because it goes against God's commandment. And when you mistreat people, you might as well say, like that trash, that savage trash. I said, because these people are savages, the way they, try to take black people's humanity and the way they treat black people. I said, you got to be a savage to do that kind of stuff. But like that trash down in Georgia, they might as well just done that to Jesus. And that's why God exposed them. Because he's a God of judgment, and he's a God of justice, and he's a God of exposure. But you also can get saved too. Like if you repent, Jesus went to the cross, and you can have eternal life instead of eternal hell. But when they did that, I said, I wonder if they know, but nobody cares about God, especially if you don't believe in him. And I said, I just wonder, do these idiots know that offends God? That's the second greatest commandment, to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And God will hold people accountable for the way they mistreated other people. And look what's going on with this country. I said, this country's been hit with that virus harder than any other country. The United States has been hit harder than any other nation, which is significant because it's supposed to be one of the most technological countries, and of course it doesn't have it's not the most populated country. I mean, look at India, so you got other countries that are more populated, but God is just very angry with this country, and mainly because of the racism. I'm saying you still got them doing this stuff. He's exposing everything, and they're still hiding it, denying it, blaming it on the victim, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to let you hear this, but because I said I don't see black people as really being racist. I said they're out there marching because of their oppression. They're angry and hurt about being oppressed, and they're out there marching for their civil rights. They want to be treated equally, and they want to be treated humanely like human beings. They're not out there marching because they hate white people. And look how God done blew it up. He's done said, your sin will find you out. And in some of the marches, you got as many white people as you do black people, because all white people ain't racist, But a majority of them in this country are. They don't understand racism. They got a disposition that's more violent, a more savage disposition. I said, look how way they did victims of lynching. I said, you ain't humane when you do that stuff to other people, and you want to go and watch it like you're going to a picnic or something and stuff. So, but it's not racist. Tell somebody to get off your neck. I said, that's the reason why they're out. The black people are out there. They're out there because they want to get their civil rights. It's not because they hate somebody because their skin color is different from theirs. Now, white people, on the other hand, I said, because why do they hate black people so much? I said, because black people ain't really never done anything. I mean, when it comes to racial crimes and racial violence and racial history, black people don't have that. Black people ain't never done white people not the way they have done us and continue to do us. But you don't see, black people having that racial hatred and crimes against white people. We wasn't their slave owners or slave masters. We didn't have them as slaves. We didn't put on black sheets. We weren't lynching us. So why do they hate black people? And it's because of I believe, the jealousy and then just having a sick heart, a sick, deep hatred in your heart. Because black people sure ain't done nothing to them. But and that's, as a Christian, I go by what the Bible tells me, and all that stuff comes from a very, very sick heart. That's why, and I have nothing against any kind of movements or marches or anything like that. It's a way of communicating, because I understand what Black Lives Matter means, because in reality, we're not seeing you treating black people with dignity. We don't like I don't like lip service or symbols. I want to see reality. And that's why they decided to find that they need to create that organization, the creators did. Because it didn't look like, in reality, you can say it all you want, but it's got to be in reality. And I don't have anything against civil rights march. I said, black people and some white people, especially back in the 50s and 60s, they've been marching and protesting and trying to get equal rights and civil rights and be treated like human beings for a long time. But that will not get rid of that hate. Laws do not get rid of hatred. It comes from the heart, and Jesus has to change that very sick heart that's full of deep hatred. And that's why you still have this stuff going on. But God is sick and tired of it, and he's letting it blow up in their face. Because it's a terrible, terrible sin. It's not the only sin that America, when you're breaking up families, not doing things the way God designed it or created it to be, you're not following God's commandments and stuff. I said, but this racism is a primary sin, and God is very, very grievous with it, and there is a severe judgment on this country. And it ain't going to do nothing but go down the tubes. And like I said, it's hidden. He's just about knocked America to its knees. So I'm going to let you hear this. And again, it was from yesterday, September 11, 2020. And, I've listened to it over and over again. And the hope and the faith and belief I have is in God. I know he's with my son. I know he's going to settle this thing, strut himself in the situation. He's already in the situation, make it strong and in his will, make he's just going to show himself proud and strong in this. I said, because nobody has helped us, and I have contacted a lot of people about this and stuff, but that's the only reason why I have survived. Because as a mother, I'm a victim in this. And I've always been baffled at the hatred of sick, racist white people and stuff. I said, because what they expect me to do? What, I supposed to forget about my son, or forget that I have a son? I gave birth to a son, But they don't think we worth anything. They disregard our rights, our lives, and everything. And they're going to answer to it. But it's blowing up in their face. I said, because you see just many of their own race, these white people out here marching, because they're not in denial. Because, they can acknowledge that there's racism in this country, and that's why they're out there. But it's just, I marvel at the hatred that white people have towards black people and how they try to dehumanize us and stuff. I said, because I'm not going to give up on my son, and I sure ain't going to give up on God, because I know he controls everything. And when the time comes, because God moves and works in his own timing, he doesn't work on our timing, but everything is according to his timing. He's got his own ways, and he's got his own timing when he does things. And just because my son ain't home with me yet, and he hasn't delivered him out of that mess, don't mean it ain't going to happen. It just means the timing hasn't come yet. All we supposed to do is believe. But like I said, they must think that we just ain't worth nothing. I said, because I'm not going to, I said, because I love my son just as much as they love the brats or whatever they have in their life. I love him just as much as they love whatever they got in their life. But as a black woman or a black mother or African American person and stuff like that, they always try to dehumanize it. And I said, that's a grievous sin because it breaks the second greatest commandment. The first one is loving God. The second one is loving God, loving your neighbor as yourself. And when you do that, you offend God. You will answer to him. And you had to tell Pastor that. I said, well, God is love. God is truth. I said, he sent Jesus down here. Jesus went ahead and stayed up on the cross, took the stripes, took care of our salvation. We have the opportunity to be saved. He made that possible, came on out of the tomb. I said, but God is also a God of justice. And I said, and all this stuff, he's also a God of exposure. I said, because he's the one bringing all this stuff out. You got these sick white racist people, the savages. And I said, because they do savage behavior with that hate and stuff. The police officer, and not all police officers are bad, but I'm just saying the things they have done to black people doesn't always have to be physical for it to be savage behavior. It can just be the way you think and all the stuff, how they try to block black people in all areas of American society and stuff. But I said he's a God of exposure. I said because he's the one bringing all this stuff out. That's who exposed that trash down in Georgia with Ahmaud Arbery. That was God. Because because the Bible, if you just, if you're a Christian, if you know the Bible, if you read, I said, because the first thing America needs to do is get saved. The second thing is get rid of this racism and read the Bible and see how God does things. Because he made them fall into their own trap. He made that tape backfire. But anyway, so let me go and let you hear this. I should have let you hear this first, but I always like to give a background. And like I said, I got 4 pages on Facebook, and then I got a YouTube channel, and just full of recordings. I'll call them audio videos, but they never really have video on them. But I do have a tape that last time I seen my son was July the 8th, 2015, through my own efforts when I waited outside because I knew he was going to counseling because I had filed a complaint with U.S. Department of Education, and they found fault with the Columbus School District and had ordered them to give my son compensatory education and to do this counseling. And he had told me that he was going to be leaving to go to counseling that day. And that was July the 8th, 2015. And then the last time that he was to see me, that savage lawyer, Erin Sanford, allowed was March the 15th, 2015. So I do have a videotape of that, July the 8th, 2015. Last time I seen my son, and then, because I've seen my son abused, neglected. He's told me about it. I've heard him get abused and neglected, and then I have a audio tape of me witnessing my son being punched and assaulted on the state grounds of a state-operated and ran developmental center. They're actually ICF MRI facilities here in Columbus. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and let you hear this. And like I said, just listen at the end. And this sounds like, my son is just... And, they got him on Thorazine. They got him on lithium. They, and... Jesus is with him and stuff. I said, but they got the right mother. I said, because I'm going to hang on in there. I said, because I love my child. Because they act like black people don't have feelings and stuff. I guess we're just animals. We don't have feelings for our children, I'm devoid of having any type of maternal instincts or feelings and stuff. I said, that's sickness. I said, that racism is a sick thing. I said, because anytime you hate people the way they hate black people, and black people ain't done nothing to them, nothing. Not the way they did us. Not the way they did us. I said, they need Jesus. And anytime you mutilate and torture and burn somebody because they're black, and I said, because they really are unrestrained people with that hatred, because they just go in there and grab black people like they did Emmett Till, just grab them and go ahead and lynch them and kill them and stuff. I said, it's just terrible. I said, but it's done came on back on this country. I said, because I said, what do they think? And you done been doing this stuff since 1776, since the beginning or the creation of the country. You're still doing it. It's an area part of your society from government on down. And you think that stuff ain't going to come back to haunt you? It don't work that way. And a country divided against itself ain't gonna exist. It's gonna falter. It's gonna fall apart. So with that, let me go ahead and let you hear this. And like I said, it's from my voicemail, and it's about 3 minutes in length, and that'll be it. So here we go. And when I hear my son at the end, it's just because it just sounds like he's, suffering in pain, or like he can't speak, he's moaning, and it's just, but God knows, Jesus is with him. Jesus is with him. And I know one day I'll be saying, guess what? My son is back home. The Lord healed him, restored him, and we're going to take it. We'll take it where God's leading our lives and our destinies. So here we go.
Saved message. Saved message. To replay this message, press 1.
So there you have it. You hear, and I heard some pounding. And I said, do they have him some type of nursing home where they, are they crushing something or setting up a procedure they're getting ready to do? Or, is he in pain? Or, I said, because my son was up walking, talking, and he was able to, and I don't want to think the worst, but as a nurse, and I listened to the sounds. I said, I hear some pounding. I said, are they, trying to crush meds, or like, is he in a nursing home? Is he, and I was trying to figure out, did he actually call? Was he able to move his fingers to call, or did somebody? And the Lord said, don't worry about all of that. He said, because I have ways. He said, I made sure that you were able to hear your voice. And like I said, at least I know he's alive. But, and the Lord said, just believe that I'm going to finish this thing. He said, this is not his destiny, and it's not your destiny. And because God let me know, he said, that's not the way I want you to live the rest of your life and not being able to see your son again. He said, I'm going to show him that I'm in charge. Because there's a lot of high and mighty people, like these savage racists, and they think they're high and mighty. They think they're all powerful. They're unstoppable. Whether they believe in God or not, they think that they can get away with anything, and that they're, superior and stuff. And it offends God. I said, that stuff offends God. I said, because ain't nobody, have the right to mistreat other people and stuff. I said, that's why I said racism is such a grievous, terrible sin. I said, they don't even know it. But God is letting everything come right back on them. I said, it's just blowing up in their faces. So, there you have it. And when he started moaning, because to me it sounded like he's moaning, and it cut off. And it lasted probably about 3 minutes. So, I'm glad that I had voicemail to pick it up, because that's why I got a copy of it now. But it would have never went to voicemail if it would have recognized the number. So it wasn't from that other number. And usually, like I said, when it came, like when it says, hello, my name is Myra, that's what the voicemail would, when the voice would answer, he would say, hello, hello. I would have heard hello, hello, or something like that. But I didn't hear nothing. And that was the start of it, and that was the end of it. So I am just praising God just for allowing me to, and God's not happy. He said, because your son ain't done nothing to nobody, and neither have you. He said, but you don't have to do anything wrong to be a victim of sick, evil people. He said, but you're a Christian, and so is your son. And he said, and I'm going to step right, I'm in this thing, and they can't outbox me. He said, but I'm with him, keep believing. And, because my son, Marquise, that's his name, if I didn't say it, he's been through pure hell. This has been going on for several years. He's been beaten. He's been blamed for his disability. He's been stolen from. He's been traumatized. He's been terrorized. He's been restrained. He's been around all kind of different abusive, unfit staff. He's suffered emotional pain, physical pain. And the Lord still got him surviving. I said, so I give that to Jesus. But he said, I got a plan for you and your son's life, and it's going to happen. And he said, pray. He said, because what they need is prayer, because vengeance is mine, I will repay. He said, but I will move people out of the way. And see, that's why I was telling the pastor that I had talked to and stuff. And he asked me, he said, what do you think about the protest? So I told him, I said, well, God is angry. And I say, and he's just letting this stuff blow up. I said, your sin will find you out. And I said, he's letting it blow up in their faces and stuff. He said, well, I just think um, God is heartbroken. I said, well, I done read the Bible all the way through 4 times. I said, so that's where I get the truth from, what the Bible tells me, what God's word tells me. I said, I never read anything where God is heartbroken over sin or wickedness. The Bible says that he's angry. And if you read the Bible, he said he had been a pastor for 20 years. I said, if you read the Bible, you'll see stories of how Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed because of wickedness and sin. And their, I think, primary sin was homosexuality. The flood, where God told Noah to build an ark. God destroyed the earth by the flood because he said to himself that he regretted that he ever made mankind. But then he put the rainbow. He said, when you see the rainbow, that is my covenant with all living creatures. He said he'll never destroy the earth by flood. But God will destroy nations, countries, peoples, areas for sin. He's a just God, and he will punish sin. So I said, no. I said, that's not, I never read. I said, I never read where God was heartbroken over sin and wickedness. I know he made a way where we don't have to go to hell for it, but we have to repent and go through his son Jesus. I said, but all the stories I read and stuff, a lot of people that are no longer around that the Bible talked about, either they died from, like Moses, he died from old age, or Joseph or something like that. But there's a lot of people in the Bible that God took off the planet because of their wickedness and because they were evil and they, were sinning and because of their sins. So that's why I told him, though. But there you have it. I just wanted to put that out there. And I was just praising God, but I was just, he had to comfort me and stuff. I said, because nobody want to hear their child sound like that. You want to hear, hello, mom, it's me. I miss you, because he always tell me, I miss you, I love you, and I would just almost jump out of my skin and stuff, and I didn't hear that yesterday. And then the devil puts things in your mind and stuff, but like all I could tell people, he is verbal. He's always been able to talk to me and say things, and it just sounded like a moaning, groaning sound, but somebody was in that room doing something, and then when he started moaning, that's when they hung up the phone. So, it could have been a procedure. It could have been something they were getting ready to do to him, or a force on him. But he sounded just helpless and defenseless. Maybe if they would have kept the phone on, he might have been able to say something. But right when he started responding with sounds, with his voice and stuff, they cut it off. But then that's when you look to Jesus. I said, okay, you're there at that bedside with him. You done kept him all along. I'm looking forward to you finishing it, for him and for me. And that's why I said, I'm a victim in this thing. I said, because them people ain't nothing but savages to me. And I can't stand a savage. And I can't stand racism and corruption. And that's why I said, now, Black Lives Matter. All I said, it can't matter the way they've been treating black people in this country, because I don't care about lip service. I need to see reality. Just like I won't stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance, and of course I don't go around where they always playing the national anthem, but I probably do a Colin Kaepernick. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. I said, because I'm not into symbols. I don't respect or honor a country that has mistreated people the way this country has. And it's coming back. It's like the chicken coming back home to roost. It's blowing up in their face now. Because you can't keep doing all that stuff all these years and don't think there's going to be consequences to that. But I would kneel with him. I said, because it's got to be reality. I said, because my son ain't got no life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and justice, and he can't even see his own mother. And he'd been treated worse than an animal, and I can't even see my son as a mother. I said, I'm not going to say that mess. I said, I'm at that age where I'm just not going to do that. I said, the flag is a symbol. I said, I see it all the time, but you'll never see me waving one or hanging one out and all that kind of stuff. I said, because it got to be reality. I'm not into the symbols or your beautiful, pretty little words and stuff. Because when they wrote that Declaration of Independence, 99.99% of those white men in that room, or whatever you want to call them, degenerates or white savages, 99.99% of them were slave owners. And Jefferson needed to be ashamed of himself. They said he was the primary writer, and we hold these truths to be we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, and you got a whole race of people being enslaved. And I said that this country's been on a pathway to, God blessed it, yeah, at the beginning and stuff, but it's been on a pathway to destruction because it was founded on inequality. It's always been racially sick, racially ill, and with racial injustice. Always, from the very start. And God's been watching this stuff year after year, decade after decade. People say 400 years. I go by 4th of July, 1770, since they wanted to shove that down your throat, Independence Day. It wasn't for black people. It's always been hypocritical, and God we trust and all that kind of stuff. And God is tired of it. He's letting it blow up in their face. It's always been racially sick, ill, and full of racial injustice. And you still got these savages, these, and especially because racism is a violent sin too. Because people think it's only if you got the militia and the KKK going around terrorizing people. It's also the things that you do, like in corporate America, how they block black people's opportunities and treat them differently and negatively in employment and healthcare stuff. It's still action, and God's going to hold people accountable, and countries. That's why this country is being held accountable for their sin of systemic racism. So with that. You can find this on the YouTube channel under my name, and then on Facebook I have 4 different pages, and the first one is called Abuse and Neglect of Autistic Marquise Tanksley by the Government. Second one is Justice for Autistic Marquise Tanksley. Third one, is the audio tapes of Autistic Marquise Tanksley, his suffering, abuse, and neglect. And then the fourth one is Let Marquise Go, Free Marquise. Free him from his suffering, abuse, and neglect. And just go to my name, and then you should see the links on there. So I'll keep people abreast and praising God for what He's doing, what He has already done. And I know I'll be back one day saying, "Guess what? Marquise is at home. He's restored, and we are doing what God has called us to do." Because he ain't done nothing wrong, but he's a African male, a young African male, so they probably think he ain't, his life don't mean dilly squat, and that's a sin. That's a big, big sin, especially when you go by that. I said, because because Jesus warned people, and I don't want to say my son's a lease because he is disabled. He has a developmental disability. And people think that when Jesus said the least, it doesn't mean that person is inferior to you. It's just that that person might not be in the same position you're in. They might be poor. They might, not be able to have all the resources you have, or they can't advocate for themselves. It doesn't mean they're inferior to you. But Jesus gave a warning to people. He said, I'm going to say to them on Judgment Day, what you have done to the least. You didn't help them, you didn't help me. That's why I always, when I'm out and I got cash and stuff, I see somebody and I've done it a lot of times, and 98% of the time it's been to white people, because I hardly don't see many black people out there on the street corner with homeless signs and stuff, but a lot of white males. And I said, this is because of Jesus. And if I have $2 or $5, I'll give it to him. You know. And, but the other day, I gave $5 to this woman that drove up to me. She said, oh, I need $2, lady. I need $2 and stuff. And I looked in there. And I said, well, I hope I have some money in here, because I usually don't carry a lot of cash on me. And I had $5, and I gave it to her, and she said, oh, I'll give it. I said, no. I said, this is because of Jesus. It's not because I'm a wonderful person, you know, because God will make you have connections with people and stuff like that, but because he's done blessed me like anything. That's why I know he got me and my son. Yeah, we done been through some suffering and stuff like that, but Jesus suffered too, you know. But God, he said, you know, but there comes a time where God comes down and ends the suffering, and that's why he told me, he said, well, you need to pray for me. He said, because when God get angry with you and want to, you know, put an end to something, he's got ways of doing that. Then again, like I told the pastor, I said, go to the Bible. You're a pastor. That's your reference book. That lets you know how God does things, or give you an example of how he does things. Because God can deal with people in a lot of ways. When he's angry, when he wants, sometimes he moves people out of the way. Sometimes he'll take them off this planet, like he did that very corrupt, savage lawyer that was bragging about being corrupt and stuff. I said, because when he was telling me about it, I knew God was angry with him and was going to punish him, because God doesn't like arrogance or pride. This guy was bragging about being corrupt, you know, and thought he was all powerful and unstoppable. I said, I wonder if this idiot knows he's offending God. Nobody's a phenomenon and stuff. And with a year, and I never felt the wrath of God before, but I felt it that day when he was talking to me on the phone, because I went like, what is this I feel? Because I'm not, it's not towards me, it's not coming from me and stuff. But within a year, make a long story short, he had fell out at home. I said, that offends God, you know. And that's my thing. I said, they don't have to worry about me, because I can't seek vengeance. Vengeance belongs to God. That's what he says in the book of Romans. But I said, they better worry about God and his justice. I said, you don't have to wait till you bust hell wide open, or the judgment day comes and you have to answer to God and stuff like that. I said, he'll get you in this life. But Jesus said he's going to tell people, what you done to the least, you did it to me. That's a big deal, how you treat other people. That's why I'm not shocked at anything I see. And I said, look at all the stuff that's happening in this country. Wildfires, double hurricanes, this virus hitting this country harder than any other country, and all that kind of stuff. All of the unrest and stuff like that. Even though I don't blame, I support Black Lives Matter 100%. I said, it doesn't look like my son matter. The way he's been treated, the way in my motherhood, my rights as a mother, and my family rights don't look like it matter. And I said, I know it's because of racism, because they always said blame my son and blame me. Then I'm gonna get ready and end this, but they would always try to blame me and say I escalate my son. Because when autistic people sometimes can have meltdowns and aggressions. Like verbal aggression, physical aggression. But it's because of autism. But they will always say that I escalate my son. I said, so when the white, autistic individuals are having meltdowns or aggression, and they're at home with their parents, I said, so who's causing them to have it? I said, I know you ain't telling them white people, them white mothers and fathers, that they're escalating their sons and daughters with autism. But you're going to tell the black mother that, because look, we're all unfit, and the unfit black mother. She got to be abusing and neglecting her son, and a dysfunctional family and stuff. I said, because you got people of all races that have autism, and a lot of autistic people can have meltdowns and stuff. And I said, I doubt if you telling those white parents that, but you got to tell them that. And that's why I said racism is not really hard. It's very, very uncomplicated. They try to make it hard and try to pass it on to black people. I said, because it's always been about treating the victim race, which is minorities in this country. We just say African Americans, differently and negatively. That's it's real simple. That's what it is. And you have to have the power to be able to do that. Because I said, I tell a white person in a minute, I said, I'm not racist. I said, because they ain't out there just like the Black Lives Matter. And they're not out there marching because they hate white people. They're out there because they want equality for black people. And can you at least treat them, like humans, and stop trying to dehumanize them and stuff. But I see a lot of ignorance, from a lot of people that criticize Black Lives Matter. And like I said, everybody out there is not, well, let me say it this way. Some of those marches, you see more whites than you see blacks. And I still don't think everybody out there is part of Black Lives Matter. But there's plenty of whites that are. But that's because they're not, and they're usually younger. They're not one of these racist, sick, deep-hated heart white folks, like the ones in suburbs and stuff that think they're all tucked away and all safe and stuff. I said, the Lord's going to deal with them too. Because the whole nation is almost like under a curse or judgment for supporting systemic racism. And they have been, the older ones, But, the ones that are out there marching and really are supportive of Black Lives Matter, they're not in denial. They can acknowledge that there's racism in this country. They can admit to it. Because you can't do nothing with nobody in denial, trying to blame the victim and stuff. And how, you don't have to be in your 40s. You can be in your 20s and you're seeing all this stuff, a pattern, all this stuff happening to to black people, modern day. I ain't talking about going back in the 40s and 50s and reading about Emmett Till and the lynchings and all that kind of stuff. Here and now. I said, anybody that got any common sense and not full of hate can admit to that. There's a disparity and there's a difference in the treatment, and there's a negative difference where black people are hated so much that their lives don't mean worth anything. Terrible sin. Terrible sin. And that's where they treat them. Because if you don't think anybody's worth anything, you're going to treat them the way they were. They have a real terrible disregard for black people's lives, too. A real terrible disregard. That is such a big, big sin. So that's all I tell. I said, honey, you don't have to worry about Black Lives Matter. You better worry about God and working out your salvation. I said, because it's going to send you straight to hell, other than not accepting Jesus. So with that, that is it. Thank you for listening. And I'll keep the information coming as it happens. And Marquise, I love you. Hang on in there. Jesus is with you. I miss you. I want you to hear my voice. And I want to talk to you. But God will have to make that happen. He's the only one that can make things happen for situations like this. And he's big enough and bad enough and has all the authority and power to do it. And he's on your side. You ain't done nothing wrong. I'm honored and proud to be your mother. I haven't done nothing wrong either. But God's got this. He likes to show himself strong and proud when you got, sick and evil, wicked people. God will show that he's in charge. So the time is coming. I love you. And Jesus is Lord. Thank you.